Okay, now that we've got our scene set up and our player capsule in there and ready to go, we can actually decorate our base. Currently, it's not really a whole lot to look at. It's pretty flat and boring. So we're going to spruce that up with a few prefabs of decorations that we've got ready for you guys. You do need to add at least 5 objects to your scene. You're welcome to add as many more than that as you'd like, but there is a minimum requirement of 5. Before we get into adding objects, one thing you may want to do, you'll probably have this giant gold text object occupying half of your base scene here. If we go to the player game object and expand it using the little drop down arrow, there is an object called player canvas underneath that. We just need to go over on the left panel here where it's a little bit darker, and if we hover our mouse, there's these 2 icons. There's a little finger icon and then there's an eyeball icon. If we click on that eyeball icon, it's just going to hide that object from us. So it's still there. It's enabled and it's still working, but we just can't see it. So if we want to see it again, we can turn that setting back off. But while we're decorating, it's probably going to be best to leave that guy invisible. So once we've got that hidden, now we can go ahead and actually start decorating. There are a lot of prefabs for you to make use of that's going to allow you to obviously decorate your scene. So looking into resources and then prefabs, you'll find several folders, a few of them with useful prefabs, some of them not going to be so useful for us here. But the props folder's got a whole bunch that are great. There's walls and floors, which will allow you to make your own buildings if you'd like. I think there's some environment prefabs, so these ones aren't super useful. But yeah, I would say props, walls, and floors are probably going to be your go-tos in here. Oh, decals as well. It's got like some flags and stuff. If we actually go into our environments folder and then the snow folder where we just imported our scenes, and then go to prefab, there's some more in here as well. There's some foliage, so some trees and plants. There's some more props here, so you can see, there's a roof and pillars and all this stuff. There's also some rocks and things that you can put if you'd like to add some natural-looking stuff. So with that being said, those are kind of your options. The only real rules here for this section is, like I said, we need to add a minimum of 5 objects. And then we also want to keep everything contained within these walls. You want to just kind of fill up the space in here. You can put whatever you want in here, including objects. If you have previous environments from previous months, you're welcome to use prefabs from those environments as well. But we do want to keep it all inside these walls. And we also want to make sure that we don't get rid of our shopkeeper here. We have a shopkeeper list kind of hanging out here. We need him to stay exactly where he is. So yeah, just don't bother touching him, but everything else in here is fair game. So what I'm going to do, actually, before I get into making my own scene, what I'm going to do is give you guys just a couple of tips on how to place and move things in a way that's going to be easiest for you. So if I were to add one of these objects here, we'll just grab one of these statues, which clearly are kind of massive. What we can do is we have a few options to move this. Obviously, we have our movement gizmos. So if we use click the object and tap the W key, we get our movement gizmo. If we tap the E key, we get our rotation gizmo. And if we tap the R key, we get our scaling gizmo. And we just click on the little branches of each of these to access those settings. The other thing that we can do is while we're moving any of these, using any of these gizmos, if we hold the control key, we use what's called the snap to grid, which allows us to snap to specific values while we're rotating or moving or scaling. So with rotation, that's really nice because sometimes you want to turn it around and make sure that it's facing directly opposite. So if we hold control, that little circle that appears shows you exactly how far along the circle is. So when you see a straight line, you know you've gone 180. When you see a right angle like this, you know you've rotated 90 degrees. So that can be very useful. A couple other tips and tricks that are nice. While you have an object selected, if you press the Control or Command key, hold it down and then tap D, you will duplicate the object that you have selected. Then you can just move it right off of that one. You can also just tap the Delete key with an object selected to delete that object. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, there's one more. This is called the Rect editor, and if you tap a game object and then tap the T key, you'll see this square appear around it, and the way or the direction that the square is depends on where you're facing it. So you see if I'm looking at the front, it's like that. If I go above, it's around the bottom, and if I go to the side, it's like this. When you have this thing here, you can click on these little blue orbs in the corners, and you can actually scale it on the corner, kind of like you'd scale an image, and probably some image editing software that I'm sure you've tried before. So, we can make it wide, we can flip it, we can do all sorts of stuff using the T key as well. But yeah, I think that should be all you need. And again, we want to make sure that we're hitting 5 objects here. So I'm just going to mute. I'm not going to go too crazy decorating my scene, but again, you guys are welcome to go and spend as much time as you'd like. This is your time to kind of show off your creativity. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to mute and fast forward, and then we'll check in on each other at the end. Okay. Like I said, I didn't add too much to my level. I just wanted to add enough so that it feels like there's something in here. But again, you guys are welcome to go and do as much as you like, to get your base world here to feel as good as possible or as full as possible. One last thing that we definitely want to do, though, is if we scroll through our hierarchy here, we can see that we've got a whole lot of stuff here, and it's kind of a mess. So what we want to do is get all of these these objects in our hierarchy and make them a child of our world object, so that we can collapse that and make it look a little nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my world object in the hierarchy. I'm going to right-click on it and hit Create Empty. And then I am going to name this Decorations, like this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my scene and I'm going to find my player, move him up to the top, find my player camera, move that up to the top underneath player. We're going to find the shopkeeper, move him underneath player. We're going to move our world up underneath the shopkeeper. And I think that should be everything. So once we move all of that stuff up to the top, what we want to do is select the object beneath the world. So it's probably going to be the first object you added to your scene. Then we're going to scroll down to the bottom and find the last decoration we added, so this lantern. I'm going to hold Shift, and after clicking the top one, I'm going to hold Shift and then click the bottom one. That's going to select everything in between. So that's why we moved everything to the top, so that we didn't have to worry about grabbing any of our stuff that we don't want to be grouped with our decorations. But now we've got all of our decorations, and we're just going to click and drag those onto the decorations object under world, and that's going to make it a child of the decorations object, which does mean a lot of things. It means that it would move with the decorations object, means it would rotate with the definition or decorations object, but we're actually not going to be doing any of that. This is strictly for us to be able to organize our hierarchy a little better. So now if I click this little drop down arrow next to decorations, now my hierarchy is no longer a mess, and I only have those 4 objects that I need to see there. Finally, I suppose, since we're done decorating, I can actually just go ahead and turn my visibility back on for that canvas there. So yeah, once you are done with that, you can go ahead and save your scene.